Back for another edition of In the Huddle. Carl Dukes put them up along with Jason Canfora and Brian Baldinger, part of this podcast. Guys, we are at week 13 in the National Football League. A lot of things being settled out. We kind of figure who's going to be the best teams. The cream is rising, and we got a lot to talk about coming off the Thanksgiving holiday. Before we get into some of these games, obviously, Jason, this is an important time for a lot of teams, and I just want to mention, you just were talking about the holiday schedule and how some of these games are going to play out. We're at a point in the season, especially in the division. I mean, we're going to talk about the Steelers and the Bengals and all these division games now starting to pile up and matter. It's an important time right now, just from a scheduling standpoint at where we are in the season.
Yeah. Look, this is a weird year in that the Bills have already basically clinched the AFC East. I mean, Kansas City has all but clinched the AFC West. It's going to be hard for anybody to catch the Lions, especially if they beat the Packers this week.
Yep.
So we've got some where, even Houston not playing particularly good ball. But they've already swept the Colts. They found a way to beat the Jags. Houston, that division's over. And then there's some divisions where I don't know that anybody's any good, like the NFC South and the NFC West, that are a bit of a jumbled mess. But I think we've, in terms of divisions with multiple competitive teams pushing, you've kind of got the AFC North and the NFC North to a certain degree. Again, if anybody can catch Detroit, but certainly jockeying for positions there, and divisions that, could have multiple playoff teams. But that's really it, right? The Eagles, that's over. So yeah, we've got, some games looming in the next few weeks. We've got the second one coming up between Arizona and Seattle. That's big. And then the Rams still have to face Seattle and Arizona. The Steelers and the Ravens have to play a second time. The Pack and Detroit on Thursday night, big divisional game. That's that. They want to, they want to have the drama trickle through all 17 weeks, and that's why they set it up the way they do. And it's not foolproof. Again, some of these divisions, there's nothing to see there. But yeah, we'll have some key interdivision games here the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, Lions, Eagles, Seahawks, Falcons right now in the NFC. You mentioned the AFC and what it looks like. Those would be the division winners as it looks right now. Of course, all of that could change. All right, let's talk about what we saw in this Steeler-Bengals game. Two observations. One, Steelers look like a legitimate Super Bowl contender. Two, Joe Burrow is balling out. I mean, I don't know what else he can do to try to keep his team in games. We always talk about quarterbacks carrying teams. He's doing every damn thing he can, Jason, and they continue to lose. Lou Anarumo, we talked about him for the last 3 years and how good he's been. And now I'm starting to believe that may be where the emphasis is going to be this offseason when we start talking about, do they make a change at the DC, personnel, et cetera? Because the Bengals guys, they keep talking about hope. They're done. They're done.
That was it. I mean, we've said they've had their 9 lives like a cat. I guess the Bengal is a cat, but that was it. That was number 9. That was an absolute must-win game out of the bye against the Steelers. And there's a couple takeaways. One, I'm with you. The Bengals have to fix their defense. I don't think Lou Anarumo is a problem, but they need new players at all 3 levels. And how much will Mike Brown be committed to spending? He didn't do himself any favors by waiting on Jamar Chase. He's got to keep Jamar Chase, I think. We already knew Higgins was going to leave. At this point, they've drafted some pass rushers the last few years. And it's clear Trey Hendrickson's not going to have a future there. So, they need to start looking at some of their young players here the final month of the season and seeing who could be a part of the solution on defense. But I'll be fascinated to see how Mike Brown responds to this. And, Joe Burrow basically put everybody on notice and said, there's a level of professionalism that has to sort of permeate this building despite the season basically being over. And we're going to be assessed and graded on how we respond to this. And while it may not result in us saving our season, it's clear that tensions are high in that building. So that's going to be sort of a fascinating case study. Mike Brown's an older guy. How close does he think they are to winning? I know when you pay a quarterback that much money and a quarterback's that good, you feel like you could win every year. But I'll be really interested to see what their offseason looks like. And for the Steelers, which is the more important angle, like, look, Mike Tomlin's defenses don't want to be giving up 38 points. But the fact that they gave up 38 and still won relatively easily, like a lot of it was sort of Joe Burrow fast and furious late in the game after he was down by a ton. Like, for them to be able to win a game like that, in that fashion, coming out of a snowbound game against Cleveland where they couldn't move the ball at all, like that's a huge building block for them. That's a huge confidence booster. For Russell Wilson to have that sort of game and to throw for 450. And I don't think anybody, Carl, had more than like 78 receiving yards. It's not like it was one of those where it was a funnel and one guy got targeted 25 times and he caught, like Josh Gordon used to, with like Brian Hoyer, 20 catches for 25 targets for 279 yards and 3 touchdowns. It was none of that. It was picking them apart systematically, finding the open guy and just exploiting it. Like, good for them. They get the rematch with the Browns this weekend. Very interesting game.
Yep.
And if the Steelers win that game, then the Baltimore Ravens will face Pittsburgh, 3 weeks from now, or a little less, December 21st on a Saturday afternoon, knowing they need to beat the Steelers at home if they're going to have any hopes of winning the division. Like, that's probably, what we're looking at. That could be the de facto AFC Championship game, or at least a must-win game for the Ravens or AFC North Championship game if they're going to have any chance in the division. Yeah, that was a pretty special performance by the Steelers. And we can now go back 10 years, Carl. Mike Tomlin, since December 1st, 2014, has played 30 road games in the AFC North. He has lost consecutive road games in the AFC North on one occasion.
It's crazy.
A 2-game losing streak. It happened in the COVID year of 2020. That's it. That's amazing, folks.
That is amazing. And that's why the Steelers are a legitimate Super Bowl contender. I've been saying all year as we transition to the Vikings, they beat the Cardinals 23-22. And I've been saying, all right, do I really buy Sam Darnold? And Jason, in this game against the Cardinals, he had a huge fourth quarter.
Yes.
He threw for 107 yards, a touchdown. The score gave the Vikings the lead with about 1:13 left to play. And I keep saying, all right, do I believe? That was a game in which I watched in the fourth quarter late. It made me believe even more in Minnesota. And this week, ironically, here comes Kirk Cousins, who's been terrible.
Yeah.
Playing in Minnesota on
Revenge
the road.
game.
Yeah. And the Vikings just continue to win. So Sam Darnold, he has legitimized himself, right, as one of the offseason guys that's going to get a job somewhere else, even if he doesn't stay there, right?
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is, do you put a franchise tag on him? Like, and same thing with Pittsburgh and Russ. And do you put a non-exclusive franchise tag on him and say, we'll let the chips fall where they may, but at least we, if somebody does sign him to that offer sheet, we get some draft pick compensation. He did not have a great first half. They did not have a great first half. I thought that would be a tricky spot for them, Carl. They hadn't played at home in like 5 weeks. There was There was like 3 straight road games and like a bye in there. And so, I don't know, any sport, like if you handicap games, you follow that stuff, like baseball team, a 3-city or 4-city, 13-day, 12-game trip, first game back, might be tough. NBA, they just played 5 on the road. They're home. Might be that first game at home. They might not be there. Minnesota was not there in the first half offensively. Right. But Sam Darnold won the fourth quarter. And Kyler Murray threw a pick 6 the week before at Seattle, midway through that third quarter when it looked like Arizona was going to take that game over coming out of a bye. And I kind of just made note of it, put it in my notes and said, I want to see what he looks like in the fourth quarter the following week. Like, because Kyler Murray, I thought, again, was going to take that game over. He threw that pick 6. Arizona wilted late. Kyler Murray threw 2 picks in the fourth quarter. He's got 1 fourth quarter touchdown all year.
Yep.
Like, I'm just wondering if that was a little bit of a, fork in the road. Now, they're going to get Seattle again this week, so we'll find out. Like, Seattle's had their number. Geno Smith's 5-0 in his career against Arizona. And then on the Darnold side, yeah, they've got to keep pace with the Packers. They've got to keep pace with the Lions. And Sam Darnold came to life on a day when Arizona's defense, which has gotten a lot better, had really stymied them. And, Aaron Jones is in and out of the game again, and Jefferson's not really taking over. Addison kind of goes feast or famine. He can go for 130, then he goes for 40. It did not look like it was going to be their day. And the quarterback really feathered some balls in there and threw some tight window throws. And they got it going in the fourth quarter. And that was, a really, really big win for them.
So everybody was talking over the weekend, especially in the NFL, about the hit on Trevor Lawrence. We now know the NFL has suspended Houston Texans linebacker Azeez Al-Shaair for 3 games for repeated violations, Jason, of player safety rules. I thought this hit was dirty.
Yeah.
When I saw it live time, because I had all the games on Sunday, Sunday.
Yeah.
And when I saw it live, I was like, Then you see it in slow-mo, and it's pretty obvious, like, okay, Trevor's giving himself up, right?
Yeah.
This is what the league wants. Don't take these shots. So he gets a 3-game suspension, but the Texans found a way to win. But Lawrence, he gets knocked out of the game. He leaves the game. It was just an unfortunate situation. And I don't know if you can chalk this one up to like, okay, Doug Peterson not getting the job done when you have this hit happen on Lawrence, and it completely changed the game.
Yeah, I mean, Mac Jones came in, and I thought the game might totally get away from him because of how poor Mac Jones has played, and they actually outplayed Houston. The energy changed. I mean, I'm guessing most people saw it by now, but obviously this spilled over into the sidelines. There were a lot of skirmishes, borderline melees breaking out because the Jags, to their, I'll say to their credit, had a very visceral response to a hit that everyone could see in real time was egregious and ugly. And not what anybody wants to see in the NFL. I do think there's a certain irony in John Runyon being the guy who adjudicates this. Like if you're 50 years old like me and you've watched the NFL all your life, John Runyon pretty much epitomized dirty offensive line play.
That's right.
We'll just, hey, whatever. That's the league. Yeah, look, I thought he'd get at least 2 games and probably 3. They do that because then on appeal, it's at least a game. Like
right.
This guy's got to sit out a week. I kind of feel like the Texans doth protest too much about this one. Like D'Amico Ryans and some of the guys in their locker room, like everybody makes mistakes. Like, don't gaslight me. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to go overboard. Like, I know he's a good football player for you and everything, but like, come on now. That was targeting. Like, if that was the college game, that's textbook launching targeting. Like, you went out of your way to hit him late, and you went out of your way, it certainly looked like, to initiate contact with the head and neck area. So the Texans, I mean, again, they're going to win that division because they swept the Colts. And they've got a big enough lead. But boy, there's nothing about the way they play football that has me believing that they can do anything in the playoffs. They just look like they're going to be a speed bump that somebody has to go to in the first round. Yeah. Because they win the division, so they're going to get a home game, and somebody just curb stomps them. I'm not buying much about that football team right now.
I am buying the Philadelphia Eagles, Jason.
Yeah.
Second half collapse last year started with the loss in week 13, and then they completely fell apart. That is not happening right now, and I don't think it's going to happen. And Saquon Barkley, another 100-yard game against the Ravens. The Ravens, you watch this, you're going, okay, Justin Tucker. Let's start there. What the hell is up with Justin Tucker, Jason?
Well, this isn't a new revelation, like, first of all. Justin Tucker, by about, I don't know, I would say by week 6, week 7 last year, we were starting to have discussions on my radio show here in Baltimore about, like, are we sure Justin Tucker is still Justin Tucker? And that's fine if he's not Justin Tucker anymore. Nobody's the GOAT forever. But how quickly might he fall off? And he started to fall off, and you started to see it in his kickoffs, and you started to see it in kicks over 50. He struggled mightily last year. And we opined all offseason, should they bring in some real competition for him and make the preseason feel like it's got a little more jam for him, rather than have it be a normal one where he doesn't have to do anything and there's no kicker competition. And you know what I mean? They bring some college free agent in to save Tucker's legs for 6 weeks in the summer, and then Tucker gets the job. And that's how they decided to handle it. I don't think it's how they should have handled it. He struggled with some of the new kickoff rules in the preseason. Like he didn't look like the guy who was infallible. And now this year, he can't make kicks from 40 or 50 plus. Nope. He's 28th in the league from 40 to 49, and he's 31st in the league from 50 and above. He is still 42 or 44 on extra points. That's a lot of extra points because they scored a lot of touchdowns. But no, he's been pulling everything wide left for over a calendar year, and then he's now overcompensated to the point where you saw one go wide right finally, in the third of the 3 kicks he missed against the Eagles. I understand their deference and respect for him, and he deserves that. But they also need a better kicker if they're going to win in the postseason. They play in an outdoor stadium in a city that deals with weather. You look at who's going to be in the playoffs in the AFC. Good luck finding a situation where the Baltimore Ravens are going to have a great day to kick the ball. They're not going to seemingly bring in any competition for him. What I think they should do, Carl, is have a kicking competition. And look, he might lose that kicking competition, and you still say, Ty goes to the second place. Like, okay, we went through this process. You see where we are with your career. Like you know what I mean? Like it's very, very real here. This other guy might have had a better day than you. We're still going to stick with you, but if it doesn't get better in the next week or two, we're going to sign that other guy. Like, I'm not saying you got to fire him on the spot, but like, I do think they need to start getting real about what the process looks like when you're considering changing kickers. And it's not just pontificating in the media and wrapping your arms around him and saying how much you love him outwardly, which you should do. It's also having behind doors machinations to get better. It's going to be hard in week 14 in a year where kicking sucks across the league, right? It's been picked through. Whoever was on your emergency list in September, if Justin Tucker got hurt, the top 4 names on that list are probably somebody else's starting kicker already. But that doesn't mean you don't go through with the process. They just seemingly want to sign some kid for their practice squad, which is fine too. But it's a problem. It's not getting better. It's been getting systematically worse for over a calendar year, and it will cost them in the postseason.
Yeah, that's the big question for me. I mean, listen, Eagles are peaking at the right time. Ravens are still a very good football team, but that is my concern. That is my concern. Let's talk about the 49ers and the Bills. First of all, Christian McCaffrey, IR, done for the year. And that means the 49ers are done, right? We've been saying they weren't going to the playoffs. I still don't believe that to be the case. And the Bills, hell, look, Stephon Diggs not being there may have been the catalyst for Josh to do what he's doing this year because he doesn't feel so pent down, Jason. But, you had the snow, and aesthetically as a fan, it was cool. I don't know if it was cool to play in, but the Bills handled their business and beat the 49ers 35-10. And all of a sudden now I'm going, okay, look, are they going to be able to go handle Kansas City? Because I feel like they can.
I think they can too. And it's not out of the realm of possibility that Kansas City has to come back to them because they've got that head-to-head all over them. So it's going to make things interesting down the stretch. Boy, you got to really wonder about Christian McCaffrey now. What that even means for next year.
Have you turned 30 yet?
I think so. I think they've got to have they're going to have to make some cold, calculated decisions there. And this term gets thrown around too much, like windows opening, windows closing. The window for the Brandon, well, I'll put him left. The Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Kyle Juszczyk, George Kittle.
Gone.
That window's over. It's over. Now, maybe they get better, like they figured out next year and they get better on the fly. But that addition, most of those guys won't be back. Like, I don't think Debo's coming back. McCaffrey, they're going with the contract and everything else, they're going to have to make a decision on. The kid Mason, the injury that I think really kills him is Mason, because Mason was the best back on that team, not McCaffrey. McCaffrey was playing because of everything he's been through, and he's Christian McCaffrey and everything we're paying. But if you watched him the last 3 weeks as McCaffrey came back, it was clear he wasn't right. He's not explosive. And this other cat, when he gets in there, all of a sudden, that's what outside zone looks like. So losing him too, and I'm not saying it like with that scheme, this rookie, like he'll be fine. I don't think he'll be as good as Mason was. He could probably give him what McCaffrey did.
Yeah.
But that addition, like I just think that era is over, and they're gonna have to figure out what you pay Brock Purdy. Ooh, good luck with that one. Or do you just kick the can and make him play it out? I would.
I would too.
Won't be happy about that.
I would. I'm just. There's no way I'm guaranteeing him. 165, 180.
Well, this is year 3, right? So, like, this is the year he can get the extension.
Yeah.
Like, I'm saying, no, you're playing out year 4. I'm not like, I got you for one more year. Like, sorry, man. Like, we're changing our spots. I got to see you in this new thing. Like, we're getting young on offense. Like, I'm going to put my money in trying to reestablish an offensive line, especially if this is it for Trent. But yeah, they're at a real critical situation.
By the way, Jason, we were talking about Christian McCaffrey's age. He's 28, so he hasn't hit that mark yet at 30. But we know he's carried the rock a lot.
He's an old 28, brother. Yeah, his body ain't 28. The knees and the ankles ain't 28.
I agree. And listen, we want him to come back, but I think you're right about the decision.
And that's a scheme. Like, part of the reason you get Kyle Shanahan, right, is what we've seen. That guys like Mostert and Achane could, like Mostert can leave San Francisco. He can be almost age 30. He can go run that scheme for McDaniel in Miami and lead the league in touchdowns one year where he's not making much money, right? Because if you block it up right, the scheme is the star. So, like, is it going to make sense continuing to have the highest paid? And I get he's more than a running back, but it just seems like a lot of chickens are coming home to roost all at once for the 49ers.
Yeah, and I'm still somewhat surprised they paid Ayuk. I just am. I mean, I was a little bit, after all of the stuff that they went through with him, I was a little bit.
They asked for too much. They should have traded him at the draft, and you could have got Pearsall and something else. Pearsall and maybe a starting caliber offensive lineman, right? And then you'd have an extra 4th or 5th coming at you this year that you might turn into a starting caliber offensive lineman. But no, they were too cute, and they overshot their load. Real quick on the Bills, because that's the real story here.
It is.
They've scored 30 points or more 6 straight games. They've scored 30 points or more 9 times already this year. And that's with, like, in this game, Cooper's not 100%, right? Kincaid, was it Kincaid or Knox? Kincaid didn't even play?
Yeah, Knox, I think it was.
Or not, one of the tight ends doesn't play.
Yeah.
Shakir's missed time. He's been in or out. And they're just rolling up 30 a game, no matter who you are. And they got Milano back, which really helps the defense. And they've got a legitimate home field advantage. And unlike past iterations of that team, unlike the 2022 Bills or the 2021 Bills, this team's built to win a snow game in Buffalo to go to the Super Bowl, if that's what it takes to go to the Super Bowl. I think they're quite comfortable with that, and they showed you that again the other night.
Well, with James Cook, I agree. I mean, I like this team. I liked them last year. Excuse me. I like this team better. I think they have more balance to what you're saying about offensively.
15-2, Carl, in their last 17 regular season games.
They're rolling, man.
15-2.
And Josh is playing great. So that's the other part. I mean, he's been really good. Like this year, I feel like he's taking that next step. I'll tell you who's not taking another step right now, and that's Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins has had 3 terrible weeks, and the Chargers came in after a short week and beat the Falcons because Cousins threw 4 touchdowns, or 4 interceptions, should I say. I wish he threw 4 touchdowns, but 4 interceptions against the Chargers. So obviously the discussion in Atlanta is, do you go to Michael Penix because he's struggling right now, and it's not just 1 week. It's been 3 weeks of no touchdowns. And then on the Chargers side, listen, the 2 best young receivers / tight ends in the league are Ladd McConkey out of Georgia and Brock Bowers out of Georgia. Yeah. These 2 guys have been really good. Bowers doesn't even have a quarterback, Jason, in Vegas. And Ladd McConkey, he broke the Falcons off for 117 yards before they finally contained him in the second half. Long story short, Harbaugh's pretty damn good, and he won a game that he probably should not have won with limited personnel, and they still get it done.
Start with the Chargers. Yeah, it's just a gutsy win. I mean, no J.K. Dobbins, who had been their offense. Then McConkey steps up with Dobbins out, and he has a dominant first half, and then he leaves the game, and they still hold on. And this is what they do. That he's very comfortable, Harbaugh, winning 17-13, 14-10. They have prospered in low-scoring games. Look, do I think they're running on fumes a little bit right now? I do. But they gave the Chiefs a game last time, 17-10. So they play the Chiefs this week. Can they muddy that up and have it come down to the fourth quarter and maybe Herbert makes a play? I don't know. I will say this. They better start getting more out of Khalil Mack and Bosa and their veteran pass rushers, or they're going to be in trouble. But that's a playoff team. I think they'll find a way to get in the playoffs. I thought they'd make the playoffs coming into the year. Carl, your Falcons, buddy. Kirk Cousins has a passer rating of 56.5 in the fourth quarter. The only qualified passer who's worse in the NFL is Will Levis. You never want to be bunched with Levis. He's thrown 7 fourth quarter interceptions. That's like 3 more than anybody else in the NFL. This is what would also trouble me about Kirk Cousins in this offense this year. I don't think he fits what they're trying to do in the pistol. I think he needs to be under center, play action, deep shot.
I agree.
Outside of the NFC South, Kirk Cousins is 2-5. 8 touchdown passes, 10 interceptions, just 7.2 yards per attempt, a passer rating of 81. Now, within that is the Dallas game where he feasted on them. 3 touchdowns, no interceptions.
Correct.
If you take out the Dallas game, he's got 5 touchdowns and 10 interceptions outside the division.
Yeah.
Like, you take out Tampa, right? Didn't he have 4 touchdown games against Tampa?
He did.
Against the rest of the league, he's been bad. So, I don't know, man. Like, I think they need a more mobile quarterback to unlock what the run game could be.
Yeah.
You're looking at Drake May exceeding expectations. Bo Nix exceeding expectations.
Yep.
Jaden Daniels exceeding expectations. Caleb Williams, since they made the coordinator change, I'd say even for a 1-1, exceeding expectations the last couple of weeks. I heard everything Raheem said. He's a defensive-minded guy. He's pretty conservative.
Yeah.
I thought he went a little overboard. He's the reason we're 6-6. Like, being 6-6 in that crappy division is some kind of accomplishment. You know what I mean? Like, and I love Rob, but I'm like, oh.
No, I get it. No, dude, trust me. And I got to be up there tomorrow. Trust me.
Like, really? Like, he got us here, man.
Yeah.
We're like the 19th or 21st best team out of 32.
The offense has been terrible. That's it. And
I just think we got to lean into a Penix package. Yeah. I think they do.
Yeah, it's been because of Cousins. They are reluctant, and we'll see. Because here's my thing, Jason, and I said this yesterday on the show. What if in that first possession in Minnesota, Cousins throws a pick or pick 6? So you can tell me right now that you have no intentions of doing anything with Penix. And Penix was asked yesterday about playing, and he was like, look, it's my job to stay ready, but those are not my decisions. So the kid is saying everything he needs to say, right? But this is my fear. We already are antsy about where this shit is. And then you go into Minnesota, and he's going to be amped up and all the things that go along with returning. And then all of a sudden, whoop, because Brian Flores, that's right, Brian Flores is going to bring the heat. And if he throws one early, all of a sudden the demeanor of the entire team is going to fucking go down the drain. Because everybody right now is like, oh, he's fine. It's 3 weeks. It is until something happens on Sunday. So that's my concern. And then you absolutely have to lean into Penix if you're serious about winning this season. And that's all I say.
Why else did you do it? I mean, come on.
Yeah. So it's a mess, but they've got to figure it out. And the Chargers are an interesting team. I think, Jason, real quick, Chargers and Broncos, and we'll get to last night, they're going to be hard outs, man.
They're playoff teams.
They're going to be hard outs.
Chargers can't afford to lose much more. Like, Derwin James was in and out of that game. Like, they got to, like, if they can go into the playoffs and Dobbins comes back and McConkey stays healthy and Bosa looks like he's motivated and Max healthy, then, like, yeah. but their injury report is starting to give me pause.
It's and that's what I mean. I mean, Harbaugh's winning with a banged up roster, but to your point, I mean, it's attrition, right? How long can you continue to do that before you meet a couple of teams that are just better and execute better than you do? Let's talk about what we saw last night in the Monday night game. It's in the Huddle, by the way, guys. Subscribe, like us, watch us on YouTube, in the Huddle Pod. Follow Jason, follow Baldy, follow myself. Put them up, C Dukes. We talk nothing but NFL and ball here on the show. This game was way more entertaining than I thought. And I'll be honest, last night when I looked at the over, when I looked at the over-under, I kept hearing you in my head going, under. And I was like, 41 and a half? And then this game, it's 41-32 was the final score. They blew the over. But Jameis Winston, man, brilliant. But damn, Jason, he'll give it up, won't he? He'll give it up.
You got to take the good with the bad, and you just hope at the end of the day, again, you go back to that ledger, you hope you got more checks than minuses. He's the only reason that they're in that game. I mean, to come back from the first pick six and immediately scald them with that just calculated drive, I was like, damn. And then to come out of the half, and then there's the sequence where Nick throws his bomb from the end zone, and then you respond like – he's the only reason that they didn't get housed. And boy, Jimmy Schwartz, and Bo Nix is playing good football.
He is.
But Jimmy Schwartz, a rookie quarterback, doing that to his defense that people were talking about last year is historically significant. And I know they weren't even good on the road last year, but mod on. But you just kind of knew that once he throws one pick six, he might not be done. Like he's probably going to throw at least one more pick, and it might be two. And one of those might get taken to the house too. It just is what it is. It's not surprising. I mean, it is baked into the cake. I will say this, though. You now just watch the energy. You watch the compete level. You watch the sidelines. You watch the pregame huddle. You listen to the postgame comments. You've now seen two different veteran quarterbacks making no money at one right on the teeter of the end of his career, the other one at a point where he'll probably never get paid like a starter again and way closer to the end of his career than the beginning. And they have very different personalities, and they have completely different leadership styles. They could not be more different as human beings, Joe Flacco and Jameis Winston. And they both have come in and completely changed the tenor of your season for pennies on the dollar 2 straight years and made you relevant and kept your team at least from completely tanking and falling over. Last year, it happened in enough time for Flacco to get you to the playoffs. And your defense helped you win enough with Watson that it mattered. This year, your defense wasn't nearly as good. They couldn't prop up that terrible quarterback. And by the time the change was made, it was too late. But just watch how they play football and how determined they are and how they are in the huddle. It's like, if they can't see it, if Jimmy Haslam can't see it, like, is he really willing to torpedo another season just because of what he's paying that guy? Like, it'd be one thing if they responded to Flacco last year and this year Jameis is doing his shtick and they're like, bro, it's over. Like, it's already too late. No, like, they're playing. Did you see what Jerry Jeudy did at the end of that football game?
Incredible.
He's not like that's the antithesis of everything that was said about him.
That's right.
In Denver through his whole career. Do I think he does that if Deshaun Watson is still their quarterback? I don't.
No.
I don't think the game's even that close. I don't think it even comes down to that. Like, there is just a completely different energy, and it's 2 years in a row. You look at Njoku in these games versus Njoku in every game he's played with Deshaun Watson. You look at Moore. You look at last year it was Amari Cooper. This year it's Jerry Jeudy. It's a different football team.
It is.
Across the board.
Jeudy had 9 catches for 235 yards, which is what Jason's alluding to. It's most in NFL history by a receiver.
But then he sprints 80 yards to break up the final play. Like, the game is over, and Jerry Judy's making a tackle. He's 5 yards deep in his own in the other end zone, and he's making a tackle on a linebacker.
Could have gave up. Could have quit. I'm with you. And this speaks to the leadership. This is what you're talking about. Leadership matters. And if you don't get it from your quarterback, who, again, doesn't have to be considered an elite, all-star, blah, 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 because Flacco's past that. And to your point, neither is Jameis. It's about attitude, want to, and how you deal with people. Deshaun Watson has done a terrible job of that in Cleveland, and that's why guys don't follow him like they should. So, yeah, I totally agree with you. Like, for me, this is a no-brainer. The one thing we shouldn't spend a lot of time on in the offseason, although I know we will because the Browns are bullshit, is this is over. This experiment is done. We have to move on. I don't care if you keep him on the roster just to pay him because you don't want to take the cap hit. Whatever. He's not our guy right now and won't be. And that this should be a simple decision. You're wasting away Chubb, Njoku, all these guys you're talking about, Myles Garrett. You've got players. You just don't have a quarterback that can lead the team the way he needs to. And for everything that Jameis is, as far as his attitude, Jason, and his approach, he can be a knucklehead and sound like an idiot at times. It's entertaining to us.
Yeah.
But from inside the locker room, it happened in New Orleans. It happened in Tampa when he was playing well there. And it's happening in Cleveland right now. I totally agree with you.
And as for the Broncos, look, the defense has definitely slipped some, and they got Vance Joseph's got some work to do here the next couple of weeks. They got a lot to tighten up back there. But they finally ran the ball a little bit in the second half. They got to run the ball better if they're going to win in the postseason. They got to help that rookie quarterback. You can't have that kid going on the road somewhere in the postseason having to throw 50 times to win. As good as he looks and as great of a job as Sean's done with him, they got to recalibrate their game scripts, and they got to get more out of their defense than they got for the better part of last night. It's awesome to get those late picks, but you're not facing Jameis every week. And
that's right.
Man, did they let Jameis carve them up.
One last thing before we get out of here. We got to go back to Thanksgiving. What the heck? Matt Eberflus. You're going to
Vaya con Dios.
Yeah. You'll be a coordinator somewhere. He'll get another job. I don't know if he'll get another head coaching job because he showed way too many times that he didn't understand or did not know what to do when the clock management situations played out. What a disastrous Thanksgiving for the Bears. And then obviously Eberflus is fired.
It is amazing to go back to the Washington Hail Mary and the sequence that led up to that, which was fireable. I mean, that you could have terminated him right then and there, and I'd have said, I get it 1,000%. And then to back that up with sort of the kicking debacle and sort of the way they played it out with Green Bay and not trying to get closer, and then the Minnesota game and to lose that game in overtime, and then whatever the hell that was, Thanksgiving Day. It is amazing to have a 4-week sequence like that where you're late, like within the final 2 minutes of the fourth quarter, or your overtime sort of sequencing and sort of game management and overarching theories and how you handle those situations. For it to be that atrocious, it's amazing. I mean, it was almost like he was begging for it. Like, he clearly is not cut out for this.
No.
The players knew it a long time ago. He had lost that locker room. They had rolled over and died for a while after, the Washington game. And then they go out right in Arizona. They don't even show up. And then they start losing games like this in the fourth quarter and overtime again. Yeah. And now they're taking victory laps as to who really got him fired. Like, good luck, Bears fans. Hallis Hall is haunted, and it ain't haunted. The ghost of Christmas past there. They didn't win a whole lot, and as long as that family's owning the team, good luck.
I want to see who they bring in. They're ahead of the curve now. You got time to do your due diligence and all the stuff we talk about. Because here's the deal. Ryan Poles, if he makes a mistake in bringing the wrong guy and he's leading this charge, he's gone next. And the Bears will still be looking for another head coach here in the next few years. I hope that's not the situation, but the Eberflus deal, it played its course, and that had to happen. All right, we got to get out of here. We're back on Thursday to talk about the upcoming weekend, what's going on. Guys, it is December. We are literally a month or so away from the start of the playoffs, and it's getting exciting in the National Football League. Subscribe, like us, and follow Jason, guys. Follow Baldy as well. We're back at you on Thursday. Jason, man, have a good week. We'll talk soon.
You too, brother.